Hey guys, I'm just here for a quick informal review of The Batman.
My kid. Yeah.
No intro, none of that. We're not even doing that. We're just going straight into the review of The Batman. The Batman was co-written and directed by Matt Reeves. Got a bit of a pedigree in Hollywood. Not really familiar with his work, but I'd heard good things. And looking at the trailer, which I don't normally do, and just kind of getting some scuttle about kind of the buzz of this film, I was kind of excited to see it. Circumstances dictated I didn't see this in the theater, but it did come out on HBO Max this week, so I took the time to watch it. And I'm going to be straight up with you. I really enjoyed this take on the character. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? Yeah. My biggest concern going into this film was the casting of Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne slash Batman. And that's just because it's well known that he's most known for Twilight. And he himself has regretted making those films, but it got him on the radar in Hollywood, and that's probably what positioned him to take on this role. And I gotta say, he does a very good job in this film. I've heard other folks talk about how they don't really like his take on Bruce Wayne, but I would argue that he's not a fully formed dual identity yet. He is so dead focused on being the Batman that wearing the mask of Bruce Wayne just doesn't matter to him at all. So for him, it's very difficult to reconcile. He's just got this one thing, vengeance, that's it, all the time. And that's a good way to approach the character that is so hyper focused. This also, for the first time, in my opinion, of any of the Batman live action tales, really digs into the world's greatest detective trope. And to great effect, it reminds me a lot of the Neil Adams run of Batman, which is the comic run that I fell in love with, where he really was a top notch, holy cow, great detective. And the first, I would say, half to two-thirds of the film really hone in on that. But again, he's a good detective, not the greatest detective that we soon find him to be as Batman, later in life. This is the second year the guy's been on the job. So you can see some mistakes being made along the way, some things where he would be like, oh, how did I miss that? And that's bound to happen when you're still new at any job. But he still is walking all over the cops of Gotham City by comparison. World's greatest detective, not by a long shot, but certainly the greatest detective in Gotham, according to this movie. Some of the design choices for the Riddler kind of bothered me a little bit, but the way that that character was portrayed was really interesting and a very welcome, different flavor of what the Riddler is. It made the Riddler scary, but also believable for the first time in a live action scenario for me. No disrespect to Frank Gorshin or Jim Carrey. They're excellent actors. They did a great job with the material they had. This was a different prism through which everything was shining. I also need to point out that Andy Serkis as Alfred is a masterstroke. This guy is known for playing, really heavy parts where he loses himself and becomes this character, whether it be through CGI or voice acting or whatever the case may be. But time and time again, when this guy shows up on camera and it's just him, he blows me away. He's a tremendous actor, and I still find it difficult to believe that he was found so late in his career, relatively speaking. He's a bit older when he took on the role of Gollum in Lord of the Rings. So to see him now fully realized as a well-rounded actor in the industry is really a treat. And I love every version of Alfred that's ever been portrayed. This one, something else. If you haven't seen the film, watch it just for that. Okay? I truly believe this is one of the coolest versions of Alfred we've ever seen. And it's not overblown. It's not understated. It's exactly what the role called for in the tone of the movie that they were trying to put on here. Zoe Kravitz as the Catwoman. Whew, really great take on the character. Really believable and she had motivation. There's some murkiness about, where she really fits in day to day with everything. But you drop that character in this context and this story, it worked for me. I am looking forward to seeing the rumored Catwoman TV series on HBO Max because that character has a lot of ground to cover. Oh, and Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He's so good in that role. I keep forgetting it was him. I know everyone's heard that a billion times, but man, really fell in love with this version of the Penguin. I liked what I saw. It's a lot of fun. Before I wrap up by saying the casting is excellent, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon is a great idea. Again, new take on the character, but you still see familiar threads of what you're used to when you think of Jim Gordon. And I couldn't be happier with what he's done, and I hope to see him more and more as hopefully this series goes on or some version of it continues, because he is really great. But again, casting is wonderful. I can't go through every role. Matt Reeves as a director is very visual. He does not make things flashy. He's not trying to impress you. He just wants to tell the story in a very specific way. Coverage is good. I like the look of everything. Maybe there's a little bit too much rain. Maybe Matt Reeves just likes rain as much as certain other directors like lens flares. Who knows? He does use everything to great effect. The movie moves at a very decent pace, despite its 3-hour runtime. And it does kind of feel like the movie could have ended at the 2-hour mark, but it doesn't. And the last hour we get is really kind of, it's almost like they're saying, okay, you're going to go through this detective, procedural drama, and then we're going to get to this third act, which is going to be a bit more bombastic. Whether or not that's the result of studio notes, I don't know. But I will say that the movie that I got to see satisfied me in almost every way, even if it's not perfect, right? I watch film to be entertained. You don't have to have a perfect, seamless, watertight film for me to be entertained. I mean, for crying out loud, after I'm done shooting this, I'm going to be watching a documentary about Canon Films that I've already seen 2 or 3 times, because Canon Films is just one of those places that shouldn't never have existed, but it did, and we got dozens, scores of ridiculous films. So entertainment and supposed perfection of art are very different things, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this movie has no flaws. Some of the things that I worry about with character development are how novice Batman appears to be, although he's apparently been doing this over a year at this point, but that's arguable. That could be just due to the writing. I don't think it falls on Matt Reeves as a director, but as a writer, that could be something that falls on his shoulders. Maybe there's some aspects to that with Robert Pattinson's performance. Maybe he had some input. I don't know. So he is inexperienced. I think sometimes that shows a little too much. Again, with Catwoman, there are some times where it's like it's not entirely clear why she gets dressed up. Is she really a cat burglar? Or does she do what she does because of the events that are within canon that set off things in motion? It's never made clear. But for the film that we're being presented, it doesn't really have to be, because this is not an origin tale. Things are just in motion. They're happening. Here are these characters. Here's how they relate. Getting back to flaws, I did not like the design of the Batmobile at all. Didn't like it. It's barely a Batmobile. Barely. Not a fan. I never really was on board with the style of bat symbol that's in the film, but it works for what it is. I miss the ears, man. I miss the ears. Sue me. I could nitpick and nitpick and nitpick if I really wanted to, but having seen the film, being satisfied, I think that's enough for me. So I'm not going to go down that road with this particular video. If you want me to talk about things in more detail, we can certainly do that. But for right now, I just want to let you know, I saw The Batman. I thought it was a very well executed film. Some flaws, but excellent casting, great writing, great visual style. And although it is a long film, I think you'll get something out of it for your time investment. So if you have an HBO Max subscription, check it out. If you don't, it's coming out on Blu-ray and 4K here in just a few weeks, from what I understand. So, get yourself a copy, whether you're renting it or borrowing it. Check it out, see if you like it. I have a feeling you'll dig it. It is yet another Batman film, but it is taking some different steps in a different direction that I think a lot of fans are going to be pleased with. So, that said, may all your grinds be merry, may all your card backs be straight, and may you be able to find anything you're looking for at any given time at a price you feel is reasonable. And that includes Blu-rays and movie tickets, folks. Take care. Cheers. Special thanks to our patrons and members who you're seeing on screen now. Thank you so much for your support. It really helps.